I have a weird sense of humor, so it finds its way out in
Yeah.
these sort of writings.
That's great. Yeah, I was just thinking dentists in Nepal, right? Just yeah, not to give away a joke, but
No, no,
that
that's
was
okay. People are like, "Why is there a dentist in Nepal?" You'll have to go and
yes,
watch
right.
to find out about the dentist in Nepal.
That's right.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Table of Content. I am one of your hosts, Albert Sines, joined with the 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 super, right? The
That's a bit.
the sanguine, or no, you're pretty happy,
No,
right? Aren't you
yeah.
fairly sanguine?
Well, temperament-wise, I'm more phlegmatic, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
So, the
Here in
sun is
this
shining.
moment, I'm joined with the super sanguine
That's right.
Michael Steele. Michael Steele, how are you?
I'm doing great, Albert. Sun is shining. First warm day in
Oh, yeah,
months, it
yeah.
feels like.
I am
So,
looking forward to that today.
yes, yeah. And we saw some on the way over here, saw some crocuses and some snowdrops just kind of blooming. So, signs of spring.
It's close.
It's close.
Well, blooming today is our latest production, which is our take here at Audio Theater on Snow White. But it's not quite the Snow White that maybe everyone knows. It's not quite the classic fairy tale. Hence why we changed the title to Lies and Takeout, a
Yes.
Snow White story. And if you haven't watched it, I really want to encourage you. I think Michael would do the same. Go to our YouTube page for We Are One Body Audio Theater and watch Lies and Take Out a Snow White story. It's a fun, family-friendly version of Snow White, again with some interesting twists. And then come on back and you can listen to Michael and I talk about it. So, what did you think about it? What did you think of the story?
Oh, well, first, Albert, my children were riveted. We were all watching it, and they were all behind me on the shoulders and watching it. They were totally engrossed. So great storytelling and humorous, great thematic elements. Watching all the actors from the Foy artists, which you were helping out with as well, and the dwarves and the main protagonist, Snow White, the huntsman, the queen, the prince. Everyone just did a fantastic job. But interestingly enough, we were thinking about you all Saturday morning. I was on a morning walk with my son, and we walked by the audio theater and we saw the parking lot outside on an early Saturday morning, chock full of cars. And I thought, oh, there's something going on. Audio theaters up to it again. I wonder what they're doing. So, anyways, but great story. Really enjoyed it. Good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Glad that you and your family enjoyed it. But, in the midst of writing a fun twist comedy version of Snow White, the idea is always, because fortunately, right, in a lot of popular media today, some material is just for the sake of, right? It's
Right.
yes, there's some sort of protagonist and antagonist, but something is made just to be funny. Something is made just to be dramatic. Something is made just to be actiony or sci-fi or
Yeah.
whatever the genre is, right?
Right.
And here at Audio Theater, we really strive to make sure that while something may be really entertaining, that there is a greater theme hiding underneath it, right? So, it seems like a fun title, "Lies and Takeout: A Snow White Story."
Right.
But that concept of lies, what we wrote into the story was that Snow White's trying to escape because she wants to lead her life. She
Mhm.
wants to lead a life of her own. She felt like she couldn't live because her stepmother was being too nice, to her, like just being too like, loving. So what does Snow White do? She makes up a story. She gets out of the kingdom. Uh, she lives with dwarves. She ends up lying to the dwarves as well,
Right.
and creates really a lot of trouble for herself. The dwarves are hurt. The kingdom is in sort of disarray, and she comes to accept that what she did was wrong.
Right.
But I think, the concept here is that we we have desires, we have wants, we have
Right.
things that we feel are important to us.
Yeah.
At what expense do we try to pursue those, right?
Right.
And in this instance, the lies and the deceit and dishonesty just was a total failure, as it usually is in life. You're
Right.
like, well, it's just this little lie, and which, they say, right, the little white lies, but eventually the little white lies add up and they turn into the big dangerous lies.
Right. They said like for every lie one says, you have to say 7 other lies to cover for that one, and then for each of those 7 lies you have to say, so you can very quickly become a pathological liar, right?
Right.
Which is interesting. When I was viewing the story, I thought it really is kind of a commentary on contemporary society's sort of self-absorption, selfishness in one sense, right? And just wanting to get one's way, but not doing it like you were talking about in the proper way, right? And I personally thought like Snow White got off rather lightly. Everyone was super understanding within her circles. So, but anyways, yeah, it's a good point. And I think the title is aptly named Lies and Takeout, right? So,
You say that, right? You say that, and you say got off rather easily, right? She wasn't put in the stocks, she wasn't put in the dungeon chained up. She wasn't, you know, severely there wasn't a severe punishment against her.
right.
And society has a view of punishment, right? And a lot of people want to give equal punishment for a certain crime, right?
Yeah.
Murder.
Right.
People a lot of times instantly think, you killed this person close to me. I hope that you are sent to, I hope, the capital punishment,
Right. Eye for
and
an eye.
right, and the death penalty.
Right.
And and that's the extreme.
Sure.
But a lot of that exists, right? Like you did this thing to me, I'm gonna do this to you. And a lot of the times, really, the punishment of having to confess your wrongdoings is punishment of in itself to a certain degree, right? That
Yes.
that weight of having to reconcile yourself with God, with the people that you offended, to
Yeah.
have to stand before them and say, I did this thing.
Yeah.
This is the wrong that I committed. This is the sin that I committed.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I feel awful, you
Yeah.
know. But mercy, as we know it as Christians from Christ,
Mm.
and we can sort of take steps, move forward, be relieved of that,
Yeah.
instead of having to face you know th- an eye for an eye in a sense. I mean,
Right.
Jesus says, right, like, if they hit you on one cheek, right, uh,
Offer them the other.
offer them the other,
Right.
right? So instead of just pounding back. So I don't know how
Yeah.
easy it was that Snow White got off. We don't know from
Yeah.
this story,
Yeah.
but maybe she was suffering through her reconciliation. You
Mm-hmm.
know, all ultimately, hopefully, to a better end.
Sure.
But maybe it wasn't so light from our view. From our standpoint, it was, but maybe internally it wasn't.
Yeah. She still kind of has to bear, like you were saying, the the awareness of conscience, or the voice of conscience in her own life, right? Yeah. Good point. Mm.
I mean, classic story, right? I mean, Judas, right? The great offender of Christ through his deceit. But and Christ knew it, though. I mean, Christ knew, but Judas didn't know that he was aware of it, right? And then, of
Yeah.
course, Judas can't tolerate the weight of his deceit,
Right.
and I think a lot of times dishonesty and deceit. Yes, I'm sure there's lighter versions of, but when you've done something through deceitful ways or deceitful means and you ended up causing some sort of major hurt to someone else. I'm not saying death. I'm just saying
Yeah.
you that's with you. I mean, that's there. And
Right.
you may be somewhat calloused to it, if you
Right.
do it enough, it
Right.
becomes a part of your life. But
Right.
I think that it's an awful way to have to face someone because a lot trust in a relationship, honesty in a relationship, and then to have it broken,
Yeah.
that hurts. That
Yes.
hurts.
Yeah. And there's definitely a proportion between the hurt and how close a relationship is, right? And to your point, we've been listening to the Two Towers audiobook, and we just finished the scene where
Is this the one with Andy Serkis?
no, I think it's the one. It's narrated by Rob Inglis,
Okay.
Inglis,
Okay. Okay.
and he does a great job. He does the voices and sings the songs, which
Really?
is pretty amazing feat.
Yeah.
But we've been enjoying it actually since last. We started with the Fellowship of the Ring, with the Fellowship of the Ring last fall,
Okay.
and now we're into Two Towers. But we just came to that scene where Gandalf comes to Orthanc and Saruman, and it's all been destroyed by the Ents. And Gandalf comes to give Saruman a second chance, right? And to parley with him and to invite him to actually help their cause. And Saruman, because of his path of deceit and the habit that he's built up and his pride, and is suspicious of Gandalf's motives and turns in on himself and becomes angry and livid and rejects Gandalf's invitation, seeing it as demeaning and just too humiliating. But I couldn't help but wonder when we were listening to that, like, what would have happened if Saruman had taken up, if he had kind of swallowed his pride and, like we were just talking about, owned up to his misdeeds humbly, asked for forgiveness, and joined forces with, Gandalf, like how that story would have unfolded. But I know that that's not really Snow White and Lies and Takeout. But when you were talking about that, it sparked that thought in my mind. So
Yeah. Obviously we have a we have a bit of a nicer ending for Snow White than compared to what happens to Saruman.
right,
But um, it it still begs the question, right? Like, what happened in the in between? Because basically, what happens is we have the scene where Snow White sort of confesses her misdeeds, and I won't describe it in too much detail. And then we have sort of a closing scene where she's been sort of working through her actions, right?
right,
But that moment, what transpired inside of Snow White, right?
yeah,
What the I have confessed my misdeeds, now I have to go home. What happens interiorly? And I think for the person who's someone like who is in Snow White's position, right, where she's been sort of it's been a long trail of lies and deceit.
mm,
The the person has to sort of come back to who they were. Like I don't think it could happen, but I don't think there's sort of an instant, oh, I'm back. I'm normal again, right? They have
right,
to readjust to life without that sort of, uh, they have to readjust to life that doesn't have lies, right? They have to adjust to
Right.
life that doesn't have sinful actions. I mean, whether it's, I mean, if you just say a life of sin and the
Right.
person stops,
Right.
right? They have healing, they have readjusting to do,
Yeah.
they have to come to terms with who. Okay, well, who am I then?
Yeah.
Like, who does God want me to be?
Right.
And so we don't cover that in this story. It's not that kind of story.
Right.
But what was Snow White's progression
Right.
of from that moment of being I'm a liar to, yeah, I understand what I did was wrong, right? There's a lot that happens in there for a person.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's important to acknowledge, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want the easy, quick fix. Like some people may be really
Yes.
just tired of the life that they're leading and they want out. And they're just like, I just need something that's instant. And it's like, you're probably not going to get instant. You might get immediate absolution. Like if you're contrite, if you're sorry, you go to confess your sins.
Right.
You're like, okay, you're absolved, but you still have a lot of interior healing to go through. And you have
Right.
to, get back to the life that you were, but maybe you were 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago.
Right.
It's important
Yeah.
to note that
Yeah.
life can take some time to get back in order.
Right. Right. Our actions kind of carry with them like a moral momentum, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes if we build up momentum towards a good action, it becomes a habit, it becomes easier to do that action, right? But then that also works true for bad habits as well, right? So if we're trying to fight against the moral momentum or the inertia of a bad moral habit, it's going to be a struggle at first,
Right.
hopefully, and maybe we'll continue those struggles all throughout our life, right? Like think about like these 12-step programs, for people who are kind of struggling with alcohol addiction, right? And that idea of like there's certain steps, that awareness, they have to know that it's a problem for them, and then they have to turn it over to a higher power, and then they have to continue that realization that they can't fool themselves into thinking that um, that they can handle a drink, right?
Right.
Because they can't,
Right.
and none of us can really. Like with evil, when it comes to evil, like we can't handle evil, right? So, you know, anyways, yeah, it's a great reflection that you just made there. Yeah.
So, Snow White, path to recovery, something better ahead. We
Yes,
we we
we
hope,
hope.
maybe there'll be a sequel, well, I'm just saying that.
So, preference, would you rather just do one long shot or take like you did for Snow White? Or would you rather say something like a few years ago you did Christmas Carol, which was more kind of broken up into scenes and individuals? What do you have a preference there, or it just kind of works out how it works out?
I think it depends. I can't say I have an immediate preference. I think that each one has its own sort of production value.
Yep.
And obviously, there's an energy to sort of having this live production, bringing everyone in with live Foley. A Christmas Carol was what we would have called here sort of a full production. We're casting people, we're recording in pieces, we're getting multiple tracks of people's takes, we're bringing in digital sound effects, or we're making the Foley separately later. And
Mm,
then we combine it all in post production, right?
okay,
So
sure.
we create what might be considered a cleaner sounding final product,
Right. Yes.
but there wasn't exactly the energy of having everyone together,
Right.
right?
Yes.
There's a we get to play off of each other, and if you watch in some of the video from Snow White, you'll see like uh, the queen, the evil queen, the stepmother played by Peg Bryan, talking to her huntsman, and she really was just like, "Oh, huntsman," and "Oh, Alex." I
Right.
won't tell you who Alex is.
Right.
Alex is magical. But that sort of play off
Right.
That affects the performance versus just talking to someone behind the control room and
Right.
saying, "Okay, now give your line and say it like this." When you can actually play off of someone, right? It
Yes,
it affects the performance completely,
it
and we were
does.
able to do that here, right? So we had pretty much all the dwarves on one side and the rest of the cast on the other side,
Mm.
and especially when the dwarves got into it, right? They were able to sort of talk across to Snow White, and Snow White could see the dwarves. So,
Right.
from a energetic, fun perspective, I would take this type of live in studio recording
Right.
over what we do with the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
But for the ability to really create sort of a more immersive experience and have more time to work through the sound,
Mhm.
Christmas Carol and anything like that is equally as good in its
Right.
own way.
Right.
But I loved how we did this for Snow White.
Yeah. And to your point, you can see that watching the YouTube video of the actors and how they play off each other, and even some who don't have lines at a particular moment, you'll see them stifling laughs or giggles because of the fun that they're having and the
Mhm.
humor that they see uh, with all the other actors at that moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did a great job.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it was a lot of fun. The story, it's a lot of fun,
Yes.
and we have a good message inside of it, and we hope that everyone who watches and listens is entertained by it. Again, we had a great time putting it on, and we're looking forward to doing more of those productions as the year goes on. So I'm glad you liked it. We hope
Yeah.
that you like it, you go and watch it and you like it. Um, I just wanna know, but before we close, did you have a favorite scene? Because there was a lot of I had a lot of favorite moments actually being in the production,
Yes.
but did you have a favorite scene?
Oh my goodness, you put me on the spot
Yes, on the
because
spot.
my goodness. Um, i- it's not really a favorite scene, but I really liked the huntsman and how he has this tendency to go off on tangents.
No, right.
I for some reason I found that so endearing, and maybe that's because that's a personal trait that I deal with. Like I'll be having this idea, and then I'll see, oh, squirrel, and then I'll go down that, you know. So, anyways, dentists in Nepal, right?
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, I'm very much a dog most of the times, like, my brain is so, yeah, I think there's a lot of us who can relate to the huntsman, come in and be like, "Actually, this isn't like that's not what I wanna talk to you about. Focus."
One scene I did find very humorous comes at the very end, and I don't know if I should say it or not because I don't want to give it away. But it has. I'll just kind of reference it for you, but it has to do with the last requests of the dwarves of
Oh.
Snow White, and she thinks it's one thing, and they're like, it isn't. Like it's something else." So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure you know what I'm
I know what
talking
you're
about.
talking
So
about, yeah.
not to give it away, but it's a great scene.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael and I have been reviewing Lies and Takeout, a Snow White story, a production from We Are One Body Audio Theater. It is available now to watch and listen to. Go to our YouTube page, go to our Facebook page, go to our web page for We Are One Body Audio Theater. Find a way, it's there. Give it a listen, watch it, get your family involved. It really is a lot of fun. And we
Share it with your friends.
yeah, share it. Send it around. If you got social media, reshare it, reshare the post, just as far as wide as you can. And also, as always, if you like that and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. Like it, and and you'll get more content because we are producing more content. Um,
It helps our channel.
yeah, it helps our channel. And if you are in the greater Latrobe area and you are interested in wanting to take part in one of these productions, reach out to us, contact us, let us know that you have an interest. We're always trying to grow our base of actors or Foley artists. So if you have any interest in any of that, please reach out to us. Michael Steele, always a great pleasure to talk fairy tales with you, even if they're a little twisted.
Likewise, Albert. And I always enjoy our conversations. So thank you. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've enjoyed being here with you. We will return again for another episode of the Table of Content. We hope that you will join us as well. Until then, be good, stay safe. Peace.
Peace.